Welcome back to episode 2 of the Fractured the Fractured Podcast. As you can tell, I still haven't got my new mic. It's still shit. So, I should have it by the 3rd episode. So let's do a sound off.
Hello everyone, I'm Alpha Spartan 117. Good to be back.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Crimson Quill. I'll be writing the Fractured Glass Fireteam Luna story. This is the first time here, so let's see how it goes.
Luca.
Hello, I am Luca. I am new here and still figuring things out.
Luca is our guest star for this episode. Plus, also, Quill's technically a guest star. But
applause for Luca, everybody.
Luca is the guest star.
Yes.
Oh wait,
Okay.
I'm muted. Oh wait, I thought I was muted. Howdy, no man, here again.
And howdy, Theta, back from being MIA.
He's no longer missing in action. So, a lot of things kind of happened since the last episode, especially in the community and stuff. So, especially at 3 for 3, I feel really, really sorry for all the people that lost their jobs. And
Yeah,
3 for 3, and Bethesda as well.
I think it was Microsoft wide actually. I heard over 10,000 people got
Yeah,
fired.
there's 10,000 people in total.
That's
No,
quite a
over.
few.
Over Microsoft itself, and like it was all its parts of its company. Everyone's kind of just focusing on 3 for 3 itself, but it was also Bethesda who was affected. Most of the team that was at least it wasn't as big on Bethesda. It was like maybe just some of the team that wasn't being used for Starfield.
Overall, if this article is correct, they cut about 10,000 workers, which is about 5% of its workforce.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which is horrible. I hope those people can find jobs quickly, especially in this horrible economy we are already currently in.
Yeah, I hope
Yeah.
so too.
It for all the issues I've had with especially like 343 as of late, it's never a good thing when people lose their jobs. So
Mhm.
hopefully they can bounce back.
And
Hopefully they can bounce back.
to anyone who makes jokes about making fun of these people were fired, maybe they'll get new people. Yeah, go fuck yourself, because if you're making fun or shitting on people that just lost their job, you should crawl into a hole and then have a cement mixer pour cement mix on you.
Wow.
Kayaks is here. Kayaks,
Huh?
mind introducing yourself?
Hey guys, has joined the current episode 2 in progress.
Hello.
Yeah, say hello.
Nothing much.
Not much.
Okay.
We just got started. We were kind of discussing
what did I
the
miss?
current
Hello,
events.
everyone.
Just getting started on that, actually. Do you have any? What are your thoughts on it, actually? Since you're here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For me, personally, I don't know much about this event, but just knowing that a lot of employees lost their jobs, it's really saddening to me. I was discussing this. I was actually talking to someone on Twitter who
It's
was
familiar.
actually this person was a big fan. If you guys know the artist by the name of Hazel, this person made
Hazel Queen?
this person made a
Do you have any
cute
idea how
ODST
little
girl
that narrows it down? There's a lot of
with a scarf.
ESTs.
You guys
He
can't
sent
think
the
of it.
image on text, bitches.
Wait, excuse me. Actually, anyway, this person was really saddened to know because in the end, this person was, I don't know if it was female or male, but this person was like, why people are just being people are being shitters on 343 employees. Yes, there's a lot of things 343 did wrong, but in the end, they're just human beings, which I can't say because I don't know what it's like to be in their shoes.
Yeah.
I just hope those employees find new jobs and get a better future. And to those who shit on them,
All I
shame
gotta
on
say to
you.
those people are,
Shame
I
on
hope
you
you
and
guys
rethink
don't
your
lose your
life.
jobs
Simple as
in
that.
this
I'm making
horrible
peace.
recession that we're in.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, so
Yeah, I
what you
was-
reap, you know?
I work at a grocery store,
Or
and I just overhearing like some like vendors, like these were like the vendors for like Khalil and Coca-Cola. They were talking about like how there's probably going to be a mass layoff stuff for probably a different number of companies because of the recession. But I'll probably leave the talk about this topic of recession because it did get very
Ouch.
political, and I kind of want to leave this kind of political-free episode for.
Yeah,
So,
let's just we'll
it's a much
we'll
bigger
restrict it
topic.
to
I
the-
don't think we can cover. We don't have the expertise to talk about
Agreed.
I just have
Yeah.
one more question, like real quick, and this is for Alpha since he was looking at the article. Is it
Agreed.
true that they did they mention in that article at all that they did this because of Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard, or
I will admit I haven't really gotten too far into it. It is from the Associated Press. It does mention that Microsoft is cutting far fewer jobs than it had added during the COVID-19 pandemic. And it was only because they added so many due to the boom in demand for workplace software and cloud computing services. So now that the need for maintaining and or keeping that up to snuff as more people are no longer having to work from home, that they're no longer really having to, it's not so much a pressing need, I should say. They do say they are still planning to hire in key strategic areas. The article also does make a note for new computer platform using advances in artificial intelligence. Again, I'm mostly just skimming this article, but it doesn't really say overall why. Although, another company, Meta, is apparently not doing too well either. Though they've been losing money ever since they started their, what was it, the metaverse back at the tail end of 2020, I think it was.
The metaverse is a piece of garbage.
yeah,
It's an interesting concept, but it's
It's
nowhere
executed
near.
poorly.
Yeah,
I remember seeing videos of people. This dude was going around just swearing the thing, and people. There was a bunch of like old dads like, "Please don't swear." It's like, bruh.
my
But,
favorite. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, you can say what you want to say.
I was gonna say my favorite video everyone loved to like rip apart was that that shopping, online shopping in the VR world. No, why would you change up how Amazon does it? That doesn't. No, I don't want to pretend I'm in the grocery section.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but then it's like, all right, I have to go walk across this digital area to get my grapes and go all the way. I forgot the soda. And but yeah, so let's change it back to about.
Let's not
the
go
stuff
down
going
the
on
rabbit
3-3.
hole, shall
So
we?
the portion of the team that was mostly laid off was the single player portion of the team, which was a decent chunk of the artists and a lot of people that just worked on campaign in general, which is horrible.
Yeah,
Again, hope those people find jobs. Alpha, was that correct to the article about the?
So the Associated Press article I was looking at was more looking at the layoffs at Microsoft just from a macro level. I am kind of looking at a couple other articles to see the extent at which it hit 343. Regretfully, it doesn't seem, unless someone in the comments can prove us wrong. I can't really see exact numbers of how affected 343 was. Looks like actually here from Dual Shockers, at least 60 people from 343.
Wow.
Jesus.
Anyone want to add on to that? What Alpha's saying?
I don't really have anything to add because just don't know too much about it altogether. But man, it's just unfortunate overall.
We seem to be going through a very difficult period for
Agreed.
job retention and, well, our favourite franchises. I can't really imagine what it's like for those people going out because it's horrible to just have your career cut off like that. But I can relate to the sensation of desperately scrambling to get a job because I was in the exact same situation at least once, and I really hope they are able to find one as soon as possible because these are expensive times, to say the least.
Yeah, I can attest to that.
As for the effect on Halo, well, I don't even know what to think about it. It's just
Especially the
I'm worried the campaign is
side.
going to be pulled entirely.
I'll be pulled entirely, but I definitely think it's not going to be as big as a priority for a while.
Honestly,
Which is unfortunate.
I'd assume
Yeah,
the minimum
because they were saying
10%
Infinite was
next
supposed to be a
DLC.
10, quote-unquote, 10-year deal, but I can't see that happening anytime soon, especially, like, are we supposed to just have 10 years of just multiplayer?
Yeah, and at current, excuse me, let me get my words in order here. I forget exactly where I heard it, but Halo was always part of the trend-setting crowd prior to the release of Infinite. Following the release of Infinite, however, it appears to be, at least from what I can see at least, they're trying to court that esport crowd partly because of just how much that scene blew up over the course of both of 2020 as well as a bit of 2021. But they're just not really innovating or wanting to even try to follow any of the modern day trends that we're seeing as of late, or any steps that they attempted to take were only half measures. So taking point the open world that we have for Infinite, but it's a singular biome. The only game I know of that was really able to do a singular biome very well, I have to go all the way back to basically Far Cry 2 on I think it was the Xbox 360. But with Far Cry 2 at the very least, there was more going on in its world, not only with us in a civil war in Africa, but just more to do in the overworld. Whereas with Infinite, there wasn't a whole lot.
It's the collectibles, which
Yeah.
got old quick. Like, once you do, if you basically found them all in the first playthrough, what's the point of finding them in the next playthrough?
I do want to mention that as far as competitive gaming goes, I believe that it's not so much 343 trying to pursue something that popped up recently. It's more so 343 has been trying to respond to the player base and give them what they claim they want.
Respond to the wrong portion.
Well, Halo competitive play has been around for a long time, I think since 2. If the player base says that they want something more akin to classic Halo, it's inevitably going to include competitive play. You allow competitive players in these devs are inherently going to prefer their input more than the average player because competitive play esports makes them money.
Right.
So it gives them free advertising. We've now got an entirely separate problem of, it's one of. I know I haven't been here before, so this is going to be a little bit, how to put this, controversial, but I regularly rag on people who lean in on nostalgia on Twitter, especially with Halo, very often. And that is primarily because when you lean into nostalgia too much, you become blind to the changes the world has kind of gone through, because they will affect this version of Halo, for example, that you wish you could see again. It's, for example, how the esports scene has evolved since 2005 to be something that is a complete shell of its former self.
It's
And-
worth noting. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay. It's also worth noting that on the nostalgia side of things, that the franchise of Halo especially has been affected by 343 described it as going back to the roots. So Infinite, it seems to try go back to the status quo of humanity with its backs against the wall, something that we saw at the end of Halo 5, going from what would have been arguably a more interesting story concerning the morality of the UNSC and what happens when Spartans go rogue, or what we got with 5 and Infinite, instead of resolving the created scenario, just placing the Banished at the forefront, making them essentially Covenant 2.0, despite some really good characters like Ashram and Atriox. And it's all humanity is on the verge of annihilation. You've got to save the universe again. The stakes can only be raised so high.
Well,
Can I? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Luca.
So I was just gonna say that is a part of it, but it's also the fact that the player base, a good portion of it, not the entire player base, I will admit, but a good portion of the player base ragged on Halo 4 and 5 so hard that, personally, I feel like the decision to change from the Reclaimer Saga art style and storytelling and all that was a Microsoft exec decision.
I can believe that.
Yeah, because if you think about it, 343 was making the game they wanted to make. And yes, it had problems. It was not perfect by any means. But it was still Halo, just not the Halo people wanted to remember. Or it wasn't the Halo they had fond memories of. And this kind of goes into the psychology of people being unable to accept change, which is sad, but not unexpected. And people, in my opinion, many people went from criticizing the flaws of the game into simply hating on it because it was bandwagon. Hating on it was what was trending at the time. So,
sorry.
Finish
No,
up
yeah,
in just a
I-
second.
alright.
So I feel like, 343 was forced to make a Halo they didn't want to make, and that is why Joe Staten was brought on to begin with. Because they couldn't figure out this identity of this Halo that they were told to make, but that they didn't want to make.
If I may, one other point to make is many people have brought this up before, but 343 never finishes the storyline they set up. They've got the storyline they set up, and they see the fan response, and they change it entirely. Perhaps to appease those who disliked it, but often at the expense of some of the people who liked it, yes.
Yeah, I mean, they did it with 5 after making 4, and they did it with Infinite. You know, and this brings up a topic with the recent Halo stuff. A lot of people have been calling for a reboot of the franchise. And before anyone sounds off, to any viewers, I want to remind you guys, Halo Infinite is by all means a reboot disguised as a sequel.
Well, yeah, they did describe it as a soft reboot, like
they straight up said it themselves.
That was the moment I started getting worried.
It's a reboot that's being called a sequel probably because Microsoft didn't want the verbiage reboot used in order to appease the player base and try to keep them from being too concerned. Didn't work very well.
Ending and beginning to make people think it's a sequel.
No, yeah, but it just goes to show that the people who are calling for a reboot, no matter who you are, you've clearly forgotten that we are currently playing a reboot, and we are seeing the effects of what a reboot is going to do to the franchise. Another reboot would ultimately kill the franchise permanently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And to those who were asking.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, and to those who were asking for Infinite to be a reboot, guess what? You got what you wanted. You happy?
Yeah.
I mean, driving off a pretty big chunk of the fan base. Yeah, that's great, guys. Hope you're able to relive your 2007 to 2010 glory days.
I think the worst opinion of the reboot people is Eckhart's Ladder. It's like that terrible tweet. Just like, yeah, just reboot everything. Go back to Reach or 3. It's like, dude.
I wouldn't.
If you really like a reboot, you know what? If 343 decides to do a reboot, I think it'll be horrible. But if they do a reboot by starting at 3, that would be a dumb decision because it's obviously catering to the more toxic portion of the fan base.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to do a reboot, fuck it all.
Just remake Marathon at that point.
Yeah, erase everything.
Start over.
If they want to do a full reboot.
Reach. We don't care.
May I say something real quick?
Sure.
Right, let's let Nomad speak.
Right. So to add on to the Eckhart's Ladder thing, Jacob, he wasn't just saying like start from like the original trilogy again. He was saying like, I'm not defending him at all. No, I think he's a fucking idiot for that. What I'm trying to say is he also implied like just everything that wasn't the original trilogy or Reach, if that makes sense. So that includes like the old books, because he compared it to doing a Star Wars with the sequel trilogy, like how Legends was paved over for the new canon. If that makes sense.
No, yeah, that's basically what he was saying, but on a much more, almost like grander scale, because with the exception of a couple of, well, lesser known to almost obscure titles, which are basically just direct to DVD kids films, Star Wars more or less got off kind of lucky in that regard, because we had a bunch of games, but it was also a bunch of games got relegated to Legends territory, I should say.
Well, it wasn't just games.
Well, no. Let me kind of finish.
Oh,
a lot of games got relegated to Legend status on top of books, comics, and what have you. But that was done in a relatively quiet time for Star Wars. Not a whole lot was being done. There were a couple games that were rumored to be in development, such as most notable was what I believe 1313 and the ever elusive Knights of the Old Republic 3, which I believe basically just became the Old Republic online video game. But again, it was a relatively quiet overall period where the rumor of the then looked upon favorably Disney was going to be throwing the Disney bucks behind Star Wars and generated quite a bit of hope. If they attempted to do that now, not only just given the state of what Halo is, the state of Microsoft, and just the state of gaming as a whole, it's not going to go over well, if at all. If anything, like you guys have been kind of saying, it would just push everyone away, because it's not just three games being retconned. It's all these books, all these comics who have defenders and detractors. Was that
miniseries like the
the
Dawn.
miniseries Forward Unto Dawn, hell, even Nightfall. It pushes all those into the Legends bracket, and it does it in a very more tumultuous time, which is gonna garner no goodwill, and anything that does get released is going to be criticized and scrutinized with the highest degree. Sorry, whether or not it's good. It'll have that just that bitter taste of they're only doing this because they've run out of ideas and are going with the safe option, albeit a nuclear option.
And if they go the nuclear option, everything could turn out like the Halo TV show.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, that's the last thing we need.
Yeah. Anyone else have anything they want to add in regards to the current state of the current news of Halo and just everything at the 343 and beyond?
Nothing that I can imagine has not already been said about 1,000 times before by the various individuals on the internet.
Yeah.
This is something for me, and forgive me for background noise. Personally, it's very saddening to see how very drastically the ideas of Halo has changed. Which I could somewhat understand, because it's kind of hard to do being a customer service. Which you have to do it for the people, but you also have to apply it to make sure it also helps yourself and your company. But for me though, it's very saddening to see how far divided the community has been at 343. And 343 is trying their best to at least bring the community together. But
sorry,
their attempts,
let me just kind of
backfired.
put in here. They are making attempts, yes. However, whether due to just willful ignorance or just poor management, everything that they are putting out doesn't address many, if at all, the criticisms or concerns that the community as a whole has. Specifically, just again, the lackluster content at release, especially, and then just the pittance of content that's been released ever since. I mean, we are well over a year in, and we are just barely getting a watered down version of the DMR back.
If I may interject real quick. Personally, I think part of that is, unfortunately, does harken back to the controversy behind Halo 4 and 5. The reason I say that is because, 343 in Halo 4 and 5's development and life cycle did try to fix a lot of the issues, a lot of, especially older fans had. The issue with that is that in those criticisms, kind of ridiculousness started to seep in. And it's really difficult to have drive to improve something and to listen to your player base's criticisms when you're not sure if your player base is criticizing an actual problem or being upset and throwing a tantrum because they can't cope. And while I won't say that 343 is right for not addressing a lot of these issues, because I'm sure that they know these issues exist, it's exceedingly difficult to have any motivation or any drive to deal with those when you know that every single time you fix something or do something that you feel good about, the player base is going to, for one reason or another, shit on it because it's not what they determined your product should be.
It's very saddening to know is because for a company that tries to do its best for people and the player base and pretty much, let's say, the community in general is just really hating on it, it's I will agree with Luca here, it's very hard to be motivated. Because in the end, it's this applies to not only just video game developers, but to literally people who do things for other people, like art, for example. Some people do art because they enjoy it, but sometimes some people, too much criticism, especially hatred and a lot of mixed bags with hatred and honest criticism can actually overwhelm a person. Which it's very saddening to know is because, for one, like Luca said, it's hard to tell, especially from the minds of a person who has to deal with this a lot of the time, if it's being literally honest or being an issue. And this is for 343, who actually, I really liked. I was a fool to think that Halo 4 and 5 were garbage, but now that I've played them for myself, I actually have enjoyed them. And yes, there are problems. I will admit, there are very good fun times that I had with Halo 4.
I do want to take a second to bounce off of that.
Giving us those moments.
It's
The Transformers will return after these messages.
Fortress Maximus is unable to enlarge because he has used up his powers to operate on Spark.
Fortress Maximus, prepare for your death today. You're gonna die.
We now return to the Transformers.
Well, sorry for the brief inconvenience with the podcast. Discord decided to take a massive shit everywhere, and it was very explosive. So, so far we don't know how much was lost, but so far, this is episode 2 of the podcast. We got Kayaks, Luca, Nomad, Xana, Quill, and Alpha, which are, Luca is a guest member, so hopefully the beginning introduction survived of the podcast, but I'll find out when editing. So, what were we talking about again?
We were about Halo.
We're talking about Halo 5.
The community.
Last thing I remember was just saying thank you to 343 for making Halo 4 and 5 at least fun. Something like that.
Yeah.
Was gonna talk about issues with it. That was it.
We also spoke about how rebooting was dumb.
Well, not just that, but how part of the problems we're seeing now with Halo Infinite are the result of fans being overly toxic and expecting too much out of something from a new company.
Yeah.
Making a well, on paper, yes, it's the same, but inherently different product because it's a different company.
Yeah.
And
if I could, if I could just kind of push back a little on that, they're not necessarily a new company. They've been.
I was about to say they've been around for about a decade.
Yeah, they've been working on Halo since 4. So.
Well, actually, they've been around since.
They've been around since Reach.
Yeah, they were originally the lore department people. And actually, I think they might have been around since the later half of Halo 3's life cycle. Actually,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I say new because there's only been 2 companies who've worked on Halo, Bungie and 343, and by that definition, in a way, they are the new guys, even if they've been around for 10 years.
Again, I don't really see that. Again, they've been around for a while. I think what we can at least just attribute is just mismanagement at the high level. Because I mean, we've seen the reports that they operate, for at least in regards to Infinite's development time. The dev teams worked on 18-month contracts where any attempts at any ideas, mechanics, whatever, were only just barely being fleshed out when it was fleshed out, and then it was time to change teams all over. The management was burning out developers left, right, and center, and I think that, at least from how I'm able to understand it, that's where a lot of the issue with Infinite is. A combination of upper management attempting to follow fan feedback, but not necessarily addressing it in the correct way. Especially because, for whatever just again with constantly cycling through dev teams. I think it was our compatriot Nobbie who said it best. Whatever Joe Staten saw that got him excited for Infinite was something very different from the final product that we as the consumers and fans would eventually see on launch.
Yeah.
Well, again with 343 did have some massive shoes to fill after Bungie left.
Yeah, I'm not discounting that, but I'm just I was just kind of pointing that out of it's just I think a lot of the blame can be more leveled towards management, just how they addressed it and with how they treated their dev teams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I will say that management's mismanagement of the situation is definitely a factor. But I also want to say that a massive issue is, the player base expecting something from 343 that they couldn't do. I mean, I feel like it's relatively obvious with 4 and 5 that 343 could not make a Bungie Halo the way that the older era fans wanted it to be. And continuing to press those expectations, I feel like, did more harm than good.
Change the topic. Why don't we discuss the pressure glass? That's what most of the people hear, and I don't think we want to be Deborah Downers most of the podcast.
Oh,
yeah,
let's
go ahead and move on to happier pastures.
Yes.
Let's talk about our OCs and.
We're going to talk about a upcoming project, which is the next big project out of our team, which is the Halo Reach Rewrite, which is currently known as Halo Downfall.
Yes, and that one is actually being headed up by a fellow project lead who sadly is not here right now due to some stuff going on with his home life. Nobbie Slicks. Key things he wanted to kind of touch on is, for the most part, Downfall is going to follow the canonical plot of Halo Reach the game, with a few changes here and there. Particularly in that there's actually going to be a couple cut characters making their first appearance / return Chief among them, I believe it was, I forget her noble team designation, but Rosenda, who was basically going to kind of be a support to George as a heavy weapons specialist with utilizing an LMG.
I thought her lore was that she would be in place of Emil when going up against Insurrectionist. I thought that was like the official lore. Anyway, I don't know what it is.
Yes, because Emil was, let's just say, very thorough when fighting him, and the UNSC were worried that he might present very poor optics with his operations.
Which is weird, because at the start of Reach, they just sent him out to go against what they presumed was Insurrectionist at first, so...
Reach seems to be full of inconsistencies like that.
Yeah.
To a degree, yes, and I do apologize for my for misremembering there. It's been a hot minute since we discussed Rosenda, but I can kind of see them wanting to go full bore, considering that the military importance that Reach represents. It is the last official stronghold, and you don't want any chinks in your armor when you got the impending threat of the Covenant maybe finding you. So,
I mean, sure, but it's still just weird that, like, Rosenda was, I guess, canonically at Reach, if I recall.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I don't know why they didn't, you know.
That's a good question. Let me go ahead and take a quick look at it.
And in fact, I think I remember reading that Holland was just planning on having Rosenda replace, like, Emil altogether. Is what I remember reading. I know this is, like, official lore, and we're talking about fractured lore, but...
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Regarding
her
Downfall.
lore is quite literally just 2 sentences on Halopedia.
That is very unfortunate.
It is.
Unfortunately, considering that she is cut from the game, that does kind of explain it.
I mean, IMO, I think she's cooler than Emil, so...
Oh, no, certainly, yeah.
Agreed.
I mean, she has a freaking... Granted, this is just concept art, but in her concept art, she's got what is essentially a M240 Bravo. That shit's cool.
M240.
Well, I wasn't just
Yeah,
talking about
Bravo.
that. I mean the fact that she, like, can actually see out of her helmet.
That works.
You don't think you can see past his skull?
Think about it.
I mean,
That kind of makes
like,
sense.
God, I remember I had an edit on my phone, I made for memes a while back. It was like POV, you're playing as Emil, and it's just most of it's black, but like except for like 2 little eye holes and like a little bit of the nose hole.
Yeah.
I do like Emil as he's shown in Sorry, I gotta turn myself off and on again.
Oh no, you're fine.
You're good.
I do like Emil's characterization in the for me it's canon, in the comic Fistful of Arrows by Leviathan,
Oh, I love that.
which goes deeper into his motivations, his psyche, and also gives a nice origin story to the Skullface. But seeing Rosenda there, her lack of lore is no problem. Isn't that what the project's for?
Of course.
No, yeah, of course, yeah. I was just saying,
We make our own lore.
pretty much, yeah. But I was just kind of trying to remind myself of some of her stuff, and I didn't quite realize how brief it would have been.
Yeah.
Or,
It's gonna be her nationality in the project.
I figured she would have been some degree of like Hispanic or Spanish.
I believe that's what Nobbie said he was going with, but I could be wrong.
'Cause,
Unfortunately, I don't have his notes with me right
yeah,
now.
let me just check the origin of the name real quick, because you know.
Yeah, same. Rosenda name.
Would I be correct in assuming the scene in the trailer?
Yeah, Rosenda as a girl's name is Spanish and is a Visigothic origin, or is of Visigothic origin. Rosenda means famed path. What's Visigothic?
The
Visigothic
Goths.
is
They were the
Southern
Germanic tribes
French?
in the
Germanic?
Roman period.
Ah,
Oh
think.
yeah, they were they fucked up the Romans.
Yeah,
Oh,
they
the
were
Romans
the
fucked up them.
they're the Germanic.
Well, no, they
that
fucked up
just
the
shows how
Romans.
much
They
I
were,
know about like history.
I learned it from the Asterix comics.
I learned it from Total War.
I learned it just now.
But the fun thing, the Visigoths, like many tribes towards the end of the Roman Empire, were a mostly horse-based people. They were able to just absolutely annihilate any legion that came at them just for how flexible their cavalry allowed them to be. In fact, if you had cavalry against any Roman, you were just kind of superior to their infantry, just because horses don't get tired nearly as often as infantry do. Quite fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, back to the downfall.
Yes.
What would be the most major departures from canon besides Resenda and the battle itself? Because would I be correct in assuming the scene from the trailer with the 3 scarabs dropping while the frigate's being destroyed in the background?
3 scarabs
from
from the teaser trailer is from Ashfall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought those were banished scarabs.
Well, they aren't actually banished scarabs either. They are scarabs given. They're from the banished, but they're not being used by the banished.
Oh, okay.
Well, the banished are mercenary.
Using those 3 scarabs are a faction known as the Chosen, which is basically a cult faction that merges their body with foreigner technology to become gods of their own.
What are their grunts like?
I need to do a sketch of them. I had an old sketch, but they're fucking terrifying. They had incineration cannons and stuff.
I was gonna say make them look kind of like silly and just have like sentinel bits just like strapped on by like string or something.
How did they treat the grunts either way?
If you saw my Twitter, I did have some concept art of the leader, Hallie Silva. I think that's her. That's how I'll pronounce her name. But she has her arm and her left arm and left leg were cut off and replaced with a 400 pieces strictly from a soldier.
Yeah.
And she is the leader of the faction. The faction has a relationship with the Banished, where the Banished kind of gives them stuff. The Banished in the Fractured Glass timeline, the best way to describe it simply, it's like a mafia or something.
Yeah, their power level is being drastically reduced. And actually, before we return back to Downfall, the Banished, as we see them in Halo Wars 2, they don't get a carrier because a carrier can just wipe the floor with any UNSC ship. It's actually going to be just kind of an oversized supply ship with a couple guns strapped to its back.
Actually had a bit of a question in regards to the Banished in GT.
Sure, we can go over that real quick before we return to Reach. What's up?
I was curious to know whether or not we'd be seeing humans being featured with the Banished, because I know that they're featured in lore, or at least said to be with the Banished in lore, but we've yet to see that in the games.
Yeah. So, Jacob, correct me if I'm wrong, but we will. I want to say we are going to see a few more of them kind of mixed in with the Banished. It's just a matter of trying to figure out how to kind of write them in, because the way it's going to be kind of interesting trying to integrate them with how the Banished operate tactically, I think, is probably going to be the bigger issue.
They just say they're insurrectionist. I mean, obviously they would have to be if they're going up against UNSC, but...
True, yeah. Or just flat out mercenaries, because, I mean, the lore behind the Banished was kind of, at least always from the way I saw it, was just, yeah, they were a 5th column during the war, but after they just said, hey, who's got the most credits? We're for hire.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to Downfall real quick. Another thing that's going to be more shown off is there's going to be an elite field marshal who's going to be getting more of a character. I sadly forget the name of it, of the field marshal rather. and they are going to essentially be one of the more cowardly marshals, where they're more than happy with sending their officers and their troops off to die, but he's going to try to keep as far away from the battlefield as possible. More or less being forced into a... Yeah, he's just big old pussy. Only being forced into a final confrontation with Noble Six when she is essentially on her last legs and having been kind of sort of softened up by the other elites, grunts, and other special forces being sent after her towards the end of Downfall. And even then, he will land the killing blow, but he's not walking away either.
Oh yeah. Who dies
That is
first,
interesting because in the original Reach, you could infer that the field marshal there was maybe cunning, but not quite cowardly. He's the one who pushes past Emil in the first cutscene, and he's actually pretty much at the forefront of the Spartan assassinations throughout the game. So it would be interesting to see how this version might achieve those goals. Perhaps he has his zealots do the dirty work for him.
Yeah.
Perhaps he feels more at home directing operations from afar.
Yeah. Like I said, unfortunately, I don't have access to... I can't really recall much of what Nobbie has in store. He knows a bit more for what he's going to be doing with this character. So hopefully we can get him on and he can explain a little bit more in that regard.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll be on at least in the 3rd episode.
Yeah.
How's your fingers?
Let me think. Let's see. Rosenda, the field marshal. Can you think of anything else that we can sort of discuss, Jacob?
We could just talk about, what Quill talked about was OCs. So if you want to start that off.
Yeah, because I'll be heading off to bed after this. It's 20 past 1. But yeah, so my project, Fireteam Luna, has a few main OCs plus some characters from other things I've found. But the OCs are Luke Adams, Spartan, Sarah Lewis, also Spartan, Thomas Bailey, Big Spartan, and 2 of my siblings OCs who we've basically just realised work really well with Thomas and Luke. Samuel Lay, functioning caffeine addict, surgeon, and part-time engineer / electrician / anything scientific, and Vidara, who seems to have a habit of making things she believes are common sense become reality, like fixing a ship with duct tape and a button. That will be some weird shenanigans, but focusing on the 3 of mine, Thomas Bailey is the leader of Fireteam Luna. He takes elements of quite a few people, a lot from my dad, and some influence from Kurt Ambrose and the chief himself. Basic.
You're right there.
You might need to. Chest infection. Edit that out. Edit that out.
I'll try if I remember.
I'll make a note.
Replace it with grunt noises.
Literally just Halo 5 grunt banter.
Yeah.
Just any grunt banter. Really.
Halo 4 grunt banter.
Yeah, it's actually Halo 4 grunts.
Drink some water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't need to have a live death on the podcast.
Yeah.
Now we can put it on live link then.
Very...
I'll also upload to YouTube. It'll be we'll say it's a reference to Jake Paul.
Yeah.
No, I would rather not be associated with that dude.
Yeah, that'd get a bit
Is he
dated
relevant
fast.
anymore?
Like that.
I feel like I've been hit in the face with Big D's frying pan.
Who's Big D?
Ooh.
Hunter the
Yeah.
Bounty. Brother Alpha Abuser. Vampire the Masquerade series. Okay, back to the OCs. Thomas is the leader of Luna. He is the team dad. That was something I knew from the very start, but he has developed quite a bit. The three core characters represent aspects of myself. Thomas is my acceptance, my realism, my practicality, my compassion. He sees a world that is broken, that has always been broken and will always be broken. The UNSC has just come out of a war that nearly saw humanity's extinction. He has been offered a place of a Spartan. Thomas sees worlds on fire, a resurgent insurrection, Covenant splinter groups taking whatever they can. He knows that he can't fix these things, but he can help the soldiers under his command survive the next battle, and he can help the civilians survive one more day. So Thomas is a very compassionate man, and that can work against him. Because, of course, when you take hostages, that will perhaps affect his judgment. The use of human shields, and all that. On a lighter note, he's also very fond of chatting with his friends and subordinates. He started out in the UNSC as an army soldier during the insurrection, so he's been fighting basically the whole war. And he's nicknamed the Brick by his platoon because he's flipping massive, 2.4, 2.5 meters. A natural born leader, he's quickly able to take command in dangerous situations. He's an inspiring leader who causes people to rally around him. His belief is that Spartans are force multipliers to be used to rally the troops, to quickly break vulnerable spots in the line, and then to allow the rest of the troops to move in. A core tenet for him is that Spartans are not invincible. They can and will die, and they need to work with the rest of the UNSC because that is the best hope for victory. Off the battlefield, he tries to shoulder the burdens, the personal luggage of his fellows, and he also likes to chat with Samuel, the surgeon, about philosophy, about history, and about life in general. That would be where the slice of life aspect comes in. Luke is Thomas's polar opposite in a few ways. Luke Adams has been in the war since probably around the middle. He lost one of his parents during the invasion of Actium, watching them being basically dismembered in front of him by Sangheli Ultra. Because of this, Luke has an incredible hatred of the Sangheli in particular and the Covenant races in general.
Racism. Sorry.
Pardon?
The race. I'm just making a joke. Nobbie will get it.
I didn't hear it.
Continue on.
Luke's hatred of the Covenant can cause him to take unnecessary risks in combat. This sometimes works out for him, but a lot of the time it causes complications. His impulsiveness and his maverick attitude have meant that more than once Thomas has given him a very stern talking to on how he's jeopardizing their operations and how he's putting his own hatred above the mission success. He is also an extremely skilled engineer and pilot, having started in the UNSC Army Corps in the war, and then being transferred to the Air Corps when his armoured unit was wiped out, and they were in desperate need of aircraft pilots. The long and short of it was he was shoved into an aircraft, told here's how you fly it, and catapulted into the air.
So
A key part of Luke.
up and down. Good luck.
Yeah, he's got better. He's a very good pilot, but his first few lessons were hectic, to say the least.
Little rocky.
Was his instructor of the Russian persuasion? Because that sounds like something the Russians would do. Okay.
No, actually, I like to imagine one of his instructors at least would be Rookie 425's character Rachel, but that's to be seen. That would be with their permission, yeah. But in general, Luke represents some of my more volatile aspects. He's my unbridled idealism. He's my anger at a broken world. I figured out some of Luke's core aspects at the start of last year during the invasion of Ukraine. Just the feeling of powerlessness, of being unable to change the big structures of the world and wanting to change them anyway. He is full of anger. He wants to build a better world, but he also has some impulsive ideas as to how that world could be built. And he struggles to grapple with how it's just inherently unfair. He struggles to accept that there are some things that he can't change. To him, a Spartan is a god, and gods don't die. Again, this has caused him to fall over quite a bit in combat. And his temperament means that off the battlefield, he can be a little hard to talk to. He eventually warms up to people, but he does have some trust issues after losing one of his parents. And he can put his foot in his mouth with his words. So sometimes he will say things that he regrets. On a more positive note, he is very gifted with mathematics, having worked as a part-time construction surveyor during his teenage years before joining the army. And he's very fond of mythology, languages, etc., being of Irish ancestry on his mother's side. To that end, he would have talks with Thomas about literature, about myths and legends, and he would connect with him over those, and through those Thomas would be able to coax out his better side, his more compassionate side, his more forward-thinking and adaptive side, because while he jumps into situations a little blindly, he can plan very well on the fly, which Thomas will use to counteract his own vulnerabilities of reliance on pre-planning. Thomas is a defensive person. He is not quite so good in the initiative, so Luke would fill that role. The third one, I'm so sorry this is taking so long. The third one, Sarah, is the least developed, but she represents some of my cynicism and resigned despair. She's also one of Thomas's oldest friends, having served with him since the mid-2530s, having been on the battlefield almost as long as he has. She's basically been his second in command throughout the war, while they were commanding the Army to Marine platoon. As his 2IC, she is very good at identifying weak points in the enemy lines. Forward operation planning, she would be midway between Thomas and Luke in operational capability. She has some of Thomas's defensiveness, some of Luke's on-the-fly planning. She's also very good at subterfuge for reasons that Thomas doesn't quite know. At least until the Bricklayer Massacre, in which most of their platoon is wiped out. Since then, Thomas's relationship with Sarah has become somewhat more strained, and as a result, she has retreated further into herself, becoming a lot more distant and cold. She harbours tremendous guilt for the loss of most of their platoon, and tries to compensate for this with her stern facade and ruthless efficiency in combat. For her, the world is grey and hopeless, and she's pretty much only waiting for the bullet with her name to come her way. She doesn't really know what she's fighting for anymore. Her optimism is gone. And Thomas finds that very difficult to deal with, and always tries to reawaken that spark of hope. It's a difficult thing. Again, her expertise would be as second in command, but also she focuses on long-range marksmanship and infiltration. I never specified Thomas's focus, did I? Thomas would be focused on heavy weaponry and leadership. Luca focuses on vehicular combat and uses standard weaponry, battle rifle and AR. Sarah focuses on medium to long range and infiltration. So yeah, those are my OCs. A very quick rundown. I'll give you a more detailed look once I've got those notes finished, whenever that is.
Well, take your time.
But they make up the core of Fireteam Luna. The fourth character is the external one. I'm going to her at the moment. But the idea for Fireteam Luna is they're exploring the chaos of the post-war UNSC worlds, and they're going to meet people from
Watching out, Quill.
Yeah?
Sounded like sound waves. You might want to repeat that.
Alright. Fireteam Luna is set just after the end of the Human Covenant War, with some flashbacks to the war itself, and the team is navigating the galaxy, which is in a bit of chaos. They're going to meet people of all walks of life and all species. I'm going to try focus it on interactions between the characters, and I'm going to try to keep battles themselves to a minimum, and when they do happen, they will need to advance the character interactions themselves in some way. For example, if they're going to be involved in Requiem, then there has to be some development for, let's say, Luke's leadership skills, and Sarah's reawakening optimism, something like that. But mostly it's going to focus on them coming up with shenanigans in the ship. Like what happens when Luke tried to hotwire Samuel's coffee machine into a pelican and drenched it in coffee. So it's going to be a mix between the light-hearted and the heavy stuff. The tone's a bit inconsistent at the moment. Still working on that.
Mind if I give my thoughts on that, Quill?
Yes?
Personally, I like the idea of you having this good switch between tones, because in the end, I do like to see that a lot more character interaction.
Thanks.
Of course.
There is... No, keep going.
One thing I do actually like to point out here is you actually are describing people that, my experience like right now in the military, I've met people like that. Meet people like that, it's kind of hard in my experience. I share a lot of these with your characters, is that there's a lot of like hidden things about why, like a lot of times we all like to hide things which we want to open up to. there's a lot of reasons why we don't, and sometimes they don't show it. So I can relate a lot to these characters, so really look forward to seeing them more often.
Well, I can assure you I will be making a lot of doodles to try to flesh out the ideas.
Yes.
There is one last character who you are all aware of, who is the reason that the fractures happened in the first place. Zealous Intrigue. I'll give the short rundown because it's very late, but he is a Forerunner monitor who tried to discover a cure for the Flood infection. He tried to do this by manipulating Forerunner vacuum decay generators, which harvest universes as they are about to expand and collapsing their potential energy. And he tried to use this to observe universes similar to enough to his own, which might have a timeline where the Forerunners were able to cure and defeat the Flood. Unfortunately, his very actions caused thousands, millions of universes almost exactly like his to collide and fracture, creating the fractured timelines that we are going to see. And also attracting elements of completely different universes. This is how I'm going to justify having the few characters from other franchises in. And of course, Vidara's common sense thing, which does not belong in Halo and is of a decisively magical nature. I will have to rendezvous with my sibling on that. But the Fire Team Luna Haloverse is going to have a few weird things going on. And Zealous Intrigue is at the heart of it. There are going to be two versions of him in Fire Team Luna. One of them, actually native to the universe, who's trying to keep an eye on them. He could be the omnipresent narrator of sorts. And the other is going to be Bat S Insane. And that's all you need to know. I'm going to leave it there because I really should be heading off and my brain is fried.
Question.
Thank you for your attention. Again, sorry for the rambling and how long it took. And I will revisit this when I have my notes in order.
Right, see you.
Good to go.
Well,
thank you for having me.
I'd like to ask a
Yeah,
question
Good night.
first.
We appreciate having you.
Yes.
Am I making too much noise? I'm eating something right now.
We'll be next in.
you might want to
this
meet
share.
yourself.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
didn't hear
You
it.
might want to meet yourself.
Well, anyone else want to talk about anything else?
Which order should we go by?
Well, no,
There goes
no.
Phil.
I don't know if the bot recorded the last part of the recording.
Hopefully we can make sure. We can make sure after
Yeah, it
this.
hasn't sent me the Google Drive download for the file yet. Which is
I mean, maybe it just hasn't sent it because the second we got back on, excuse me, the second Discord was secure or stable, we restarted the recording. Maybe.
Yeah, it might not have completed the task of like recollecting the data. I personally don't know.
Well, let's keep our fingers crossed that the Gremlins, at the very least, are keeping the package.
it did.
Okay, cool.
It didn't send me a notification.
Well, on
Start
that
talking about
note,
it and it delivers.
on that note, I do need to head out. I did promise someone that I was going to spend some time with them, and it's getting a bit late, so I need
That's
to go
fine.
and do that.
No worries. Take it easy.
You can just start wrapping up the podcast. We've been recording at least for, count the other one, about an hour and 20 minutes, I think, or something.
Something like that, yeah.
let's just wrap it up now. Sorry for I'm very sorry for the very messy episode of it. Basically all kind of hodgy-podgy. Hopefully for the next episode, Discord doesn't take a huge crap in the middle of everything. And by the time the next episode comes out, you don't have to hear my stupid mic in this audio quality. It'll be a bit better when it comes out. The next one comes out. So again, I am Jacob, and I'll see you next time. And I'll let everyone else say goodbye now.
This is Alpha Spartan signing off. Have a good one and drink water. I know one of you isn't drinking water, so drink it.
Sorry, that was me.
I grabbed the beer a bit ago. I hope no one noticed.
I've been drinking water.
We were supposed to be drinking?
Yes.
Kind of drink though.
Water.
That was more for the audience, but I'm glad you guys are taking the warning as well.
It's important to drink water.
People who
I didn't know that.
Everyone say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.